U.S. Law Shield, extremely important. More people carry than ever before. There are more gun owners in the United States than ever before. Self-defense and emergencies can happen to anybody, and there's no guarantee that the justice system is going to be on your side. You want U.S. Law Shield in your corner for the fight after the fight. While you protect your family and you protect yourself, you want U.S. Law Shield there to help defend you 24/7, 365. So if you're a gun owner, if you have a CCW and you carry, get U.S. Law Shield. It's crucial. Hi, I'm Michael Schwartz with Gun Owners Radio. We're on every Sunday in San Diego County on 1170 AM, or you can watch us anywhere in the world by going to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/gunownersradio. Again, every Sunday, California time from 4 to 6 p.m., or you can catch old episodes throughout the week on any podcast service just by looking for Gun Owners Radio. It's a lot of fun. We talk to politicians, we talk to instructors, we do gear reviews, and every once in a while we even say something kind of funny. So definitely join us, check us out. We'd love to have you as a listener. And we do these Magnum episodes on YouTube where we go into a little bit more depth with people. The Gun Owners Radio segments are, short and we get right to the point, but this allows us to sit down and have a little bit more of a relaxed conversation with people. So that's the point of Gun Owners Radio Magnum. Today I have a really special guest, something I've been looking forward to. Gentleman named Stephen Willeford. He's from Texas, and a few years ago you probably saw him a lot in the news from a horribly tragic incident that he was a part of and was frankly a hero. Stephen, thank you so much for being on with me.
Thank you for inviting me here today.
You bet. So you're from Sutherland Springs, Texas, correct?
Absolutely.
Good. And did you grow up there, or recent transplant, or tell me about your history in Sutherland Springs?
Well, I'm the fourth generation on the same piece of property that my great-grandfather bought. But my family history goes even farther back than that, all the way back to Creed Taylor. Taylors were on my mother's side of the family, and Creed Taylor actually donated the property for the county seat when Sutherland Springs actually was the county seat of Wilson County. It later got moved to Floresville, but my great uncle was Creed Taylor, and
Wow.
he's a really
a long history in Texas and a long history in Sutherland Springs, and you live on this property, and I believe is it like describe the property for me.
Well, I grew up on a dairy, and the dairy was 600 acres. And my brother got 200 acres, and my sister got 200 acres, and I did also. So they sold theirs, but I saw a heritage or whatever and stayed here in Sutherland Springs. I still live here. My great-grandfather taught me the value of the community and things. We used to deliver food baskets around the city, around the little town, when I was growing up, to people that were struggling, and taught me that value and the value of what a community is.
That's amazing. So I want to set the context. You have told your story a lot, and it's a fascinating story, and it's an important story. So I want to just kind of set the stage and give people context for what happened. It was November 5th, 2017. I guess it's a close neighbor is the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs.
Yes, they're very close. They're just right around the block from me.
Okay, and they were having services, and you heard gunshots. You immediately recognized them as gunshots, right?
Actually, my daughter heard them first, and made me aware of it. And I was in a newly built part of the house that had better insulation and double pane windows and things, and I wasn't aware of what was going on. She made me aware of it.
But when you heard, you immediately recognized, yes, that is definitely a gunshot, because you're an instructor, an NRA certified instructor. You've been a gun owner for years, right?
Absolutely. I've been a gun owner all my adult life, and I was an instructor and taught a youth shooting league, and I was a competitor and did a lot of competition shooting and things, and I was pretty good at my time.
So you heard gunshots, immediately went into action. What did you do? You grabbed a firearm, right?
I ran to my safe, and as I was dialing the numbers on my safe, I could hear the shots, and that was my bad. I had been burglarized a couple of years prior to that, and they got the only gun that I didn't have in the safe when they burglarized me. So I started unloading everything and locking it in a safe. Uh, I never felt any more safe than I was in my own community, and I thought it could never happen here. And that was my mistake.
You know, I hear that a lot in San Diego. We are just a few years into being able to get a concealed weapon permit. For decades, you could not get a concealed weapon permit. And now you can. You can get a California CCW, thanks to our hard work, and I'm very happy with that. But I hear that a lot when I talk to people. They say, "Well, I don't think I need to carry. I'm in a good neighborhood. I'm in a safe neighborhood." You
Realize
were in a very safe neighborhood across the street from a church, right?
I realized Sutherland Springs has under 600 people total. In fact, the Texas Rangers told me that if they would have been told 2 weeks ahead of time that a shooter was going to come into a church and start shooting it up, Sutherland Springs would have been the last place they would have expected that to happen. So we no
Well,
longer as a country can say that it won't happen here.
I think you're right. If you look at some of these headline incidents, Aurora and San Bernardino and Santa Barbara, um, thinking that you live in a safe neighborhood isn't going to necessarily protect you. And I think that that's an important point. So, what did you grab, and why did you grab as far as firearms?
Well, when I opened up my safe, again, everything was unloaded. And if you have a choice of a rifle or a pistol, always choose the rifle.
Why do you say that?
Well, because it can be handled better, more accurately. Uh, I was facing class 3 body armor. The shooter came out of the church with class 3 body armor and a ballistic bulletproof helmet.
Which,
And
which basically means, but when you say for people that don't know what Class 3 body armor is, how would you describe it?
well, class 2 body armor is generally what the police use. And class 2 body armor will deflect a pistol, will stop a pistol round. But generally, it won't stop a rifle round. Class 3 body armor is what the military uses and police department use in their SWAT teams and such as that. They will stop rifle rounds. So when I hit him in the left chest, I hit him in the abdomen. Both of those rounds,
Well, before we even get there, so you went in your safe and you got your AR pattern rifle.
absolutely. And I had hand built that rifle for competition. And I grabbed a box full of ammunition. I popped it open and I just grabbed what I could grab in one hand and started toward the door, loading it as I was running to the door.
Wow. So you heard gunfire, and your first reaction was to go towards it. Why? What were you thinking? What was going through your head?
Well, I truly believe I was called by God at that moment. I'm a Christian, and I believe that God put me into action, and I believe that God trained me ahead of time for this purpose. And all I could think of is every one of those shots was aimed at one of my community members, someone I cared about. And evil and innocence. And evil was murdering innocence, and I had to stop it.
As you were loading and running towards the church, do you remember what you were thinking to yourself? Do you remember what your inner dialogue was?
Yeah, I was having a conversation with God. uh, I yelled out halfways across the street, and why I did is really a mystery. Other than I truly believe that the Holy Spirit cried out for me to call out a demon. Because why would I have done that? That doesn't make a lot of sense. Why would I give away my element of surprise? And the moment that I yelled out, he had just shot Chris Workman in the back, and he shot Chris's mother through the breast. Chris was instantly paralyzed from the waist down, and his mother was shot through the breast, and he was walking over to finish him off. And it would have just taken like 2 seconds for him to just pull the trigger and finish him off. But he heard me yell, Chris heard me yell, and some of the other people in the church heard me yell. He dropped his rifle in the church and came outside with his pistol, shooting at me. Why would he have dropped his rifle? I truly believe that God commanded him and commanded the demon within him with that yell. And as he came out, he started shooting at me. I ran behind a pickup truck for cover, and he hit the truck in front of me. He shattered the windshield of the car behind me, and he hit the house behind me.
Jeez.
And I was
so what did you yell? Did you just kind of hollered, or what did you yell?
I yelled, "Hey!"
Just yelled, "Hey!" And was he aware that you were armed when he turned around and saw you? Was he aware? Do you think that you were armed?
I'm sure he was. He started shooting at me, like I say, with his pistol, and he knew I was armed when I hit him in the left chest. Of course, it didn't stop him because he had on Class 3 body armor. Coroner's report said he had a contusion on his left chest and had one on his abdomen. Those were my bullets. So, yeah, he was bruised real bad.
He was well aware. So the first time you realized that he was shooting at you, what was that like?
Really surreal. I've seen a gun shot from a lot of different positions before, but I tell you, I saw the flash, I saw the slide action working, and the brass coming out, everything in total slow motion. And it was very surreal. Everything was in slow motion, and I could hear God speak to me. He said, "Don't worry about that. Do what I sent you here for."
So, I mean, was there a realization? Did you kind of tell yourself, I'm being shot at and I could probably get killed right now? Did that sink into, that realization happen, or was it overload? Was it sensory overload?
Well, I don't think I really thought about dying as such, but I did. Before I ran over, I sent my daughter back in the house, told her to go back in the house, load another magazine, because I didn't want her following me over there in case I failed or in case he shot her. So I was thinking pretty clearly. So
you told her to load another magazine just to give her something to do to stay out of it? Is that the idea?
I gave her busy work. I knew she couldn't load another magazine and come running across the street with me in a gunfight and hand me another loaded magazine. But I sent her back in the house to get her back in the house, get her busy doing something so she had something to focus on.
And now you hit him a couple times. You're behind cover, and then he eventually gets into a car and tries to flee. Correct?
I hit him in the left chest. I hit him in the abdomen, and then he ran for his vehicle that was sitting in the middle of the street with the driver's side door open and the engine running. He already was ready for his getaway. And as he turned to his side, I put one in his side between the plates, and I put one high in his legs. And he was still able to get into the car, and he put his pistol against the window and put 2 rounds through the side window, and I saw the glass open up and the glass falling from those 2 rounds. I put one where I perceived his head to be, pulled the trigger. It shattered the window. I couldn't see it in the vehicle because of the reflection from the sun and the tinting, but I put one where I perceived his head to be. It shattered the window, and the coroner's report said he split across the forehead.
Wow.
He accelerated, he turned the corner, and he ran away as fast as that car could take him. By the time I got in the middle of the street, he was about 150 yards away. I put one through the back windshield. It went through the driver's side seat and hit him just right at the left shoulder blade. and then he
So
topped.
now, a lot of people, that's pretty amazing that those shots, and it sounds like, your ability to take those shots is amazing. I think a lot of people, understandably, would, if they were being shot at, would stay behind cover, and that'd be that. No matter how much they wanted to help or tried to help, I would think that uh, I would be gripped by fear. I have no idea how I would react if I were being shot at, but I would bet it would not be as clear and definitive as you did.
Well,
Why? Like, how were you able to put your fear aside and act that way?
I think I was truly being driven forward by God, and I don't fear death. Uh, every one of us are going to die someday. You, me, and everyone listening to you are going to die someday. And there's no reason to fear something that's inevitable. What I do fear is facing my God and Him asking me why I didn't do what He asked me to do when He asked me to do it.
Hmm.
That's what I
Now,
more.
do you have? Were you in the military? Do you have any police training?
Well, and that's a funny question because no, I was never in the military. No, I never had any formal police training. But I used to shoot on a pistol team, and there were 5 men that shot on our team together. And one of them just happened to be a former Army Ranger and a San Antonio police officer. And so we would train in between competitions and stuff. And he trained me, and we trained together what to do if ever confronted with body armor.
Wow.
He told me, shoot them in the armor, they'll feel it. Look for your chance to hit them between the plates, hit them in the side, hit them in the hips, and hit them in the legs. Well, I shot the guy 2 out of those 3 places with him moving and shooting at me. And I don't think that there was any coincidence of the fact that I was trained for that.
Well, when you say you're a competitive shooter, what type of competitions? Was it based on marksmanship, or what type of competitions mainly?
Well, it was a local shooting range, Blackhawk shooting range, and they had league shooting, which was like bowling. And like league bowling, we would shoot a 7-week series. The 8th week, the range would provide the barbecue, and everybody would bring a side dish, and they would have awards and award trophies and things. They would do something different every time. Like one time we walked out, and there was a plastic baby doll on the table and a box of diapers. And they said, today's shoot, you're to diaper the baby when the whistle goes off. You're to diaper the baby, put it on your weak shoulder, and engage the targets with your strong hand, and hit multiple targets while moving, shielding the baby away. And then at the end of the table, you're going to change magazines, still holding the baby, switch shoulders, and then go back across and engage the targets with your weak hand. And that's just an example of one of the things. And then another time we did what they called low light training, and we had a welder's hood, and we had to shoot with a welder's hood on. Now you can see through the dark glass your hands. You can't make out the sights, but you can see the silhouette target behind you. And you also have tunnel vision because you're looking through the little welder's glass, so you have to move your head and engage the targets that way.
So it sounds like they try to put you in realistic scenarios, defensive scenarios. This wasn't just sitting on a bench and trying to hit a bullseye. That these were realistic defensive scenarios that were probably a lot of fun, but it was intended to be practical training as well.
Absolutely. And I tell people, if you're just going to the range and you're shooting at flat targets and you're not moving, you're not preparing yourself for a real life or death situation. Because if you're not shooting and moving, guess what? You are the target. And if you don't practice that, your mind will go back to exactly what you've you've trained it to do, and that's nothing.
So if you live in an extremely safe town, a small town, you're fourth generation on this piece of property, and you're not former military, you're not former law enforcement, why were you doing this training?
Well, it's, Colonel Grossman wrote a book, and in his book, he said that a golf course was a willful misuse of a perfectly good rifle range. And the reason he said that is anything you do as a hobby should have a practical purpose, and shooting has a practical purpose. And it's just a load of fun, to practice and to shoot and to be proficient and to be able to move and shoot and stuff and to compete against other people. It's just a lot of fun. The shooting sport is great fun. And we got the whole family involved. Like I say, we had a youth shooting club. We got the wives. The wives would do a women's league, and then while the men were watching over and instructing the kids, all three of my children, both my daughters and my son, were distinguished experts with a pistol by the time they were 8 years old. So to become an NRA distinguished expert, that's no easy task. And by the time they were 8, they were doing it.
So, but I mean, this was just something it sounds like it was something cultural. It sounds like it was something that you did for fun. Did you ever think in a million years that you were going to have to use these skills in a practical way, especially in such an extreme situation?
I never did think that would be the case, but I always did. It made me start thinking about it. I had an apprentice that was working with me shortly after the Sutherland Springs shooting, and I had already talked to him before the Sutherland Springs shooting about, watching out and stuff. When the Las Vegas shooting happened, we talked about if you go to a concert, what do? Well, you look for the exits. As you walk in, you make sure you know where the nearest exit is to whatever venue you're at. Just because you came in one exit doesn't mean, one entrance doesn't mean you need to lead by that if something happens. I don't care if it's the closest, easiest way to get to my car. If something happens, get out. And I was thinking about things like that and processing things like that. Anytime I'd hear about a situation, I would think it out. What should have been done? And so he asked me the question once. He said, so let's say you were at the El Paso Walmart, because there were 8 concealed carry permit holders at the El Paso Walmart. All of them chose to get their families out safely, and that's okay. But none of them chose to confront the shooter. He said, so what if you would have been at the El Paso Walmart and you wouldn't have had your gun? And I looked at him and I said, wait, I don't understand the question. He said, well, what if you were at the Walmart and you didn't have your gun? And I said, I still don't get the question. He said, I see what you're doing. You would have had your gun. And I said, yeah, thinking like a survivor is I take my gun. At the time, Walmart still sold ammunition and guns. And he said, well, just play with me for a minute. What if you were there and you didn't have your gun? I said, well, okay, I'm at the Walmart. I don't have my pants on. I got bigger problems, but I'm at the Walmart without my pants because my gun's in my pants and I forgot it at the house. I said, but the shooting starts. I would run past you and grab you and say, follow me. I would have run straight for the sporting goods department, found something to smash the glass out, pulled out my pocket knife, popped the trigger lock off of a Mossberg shotgun, took the butt of it, bashed in the glass, and grabbed a box of ammunition, and you would have done the same thing. And I would tell you, you go around this side of the aisle, I'll go around that side. Give me a little bit of time when you hear me shoot 2 shots. Give me 2 seconds, then you pop around the other side, because when I shoot him twice, he's going to turn to me, and then you pop around the corner, you shoot him, and we'll play ping pong with him. He said,
You spelled out the whole scenario. I understand that. I get it.
Wow,
Now,
I never would have thought of going to the sporting goods department and doing that. I said, because you're not thinking like a survivor, you're thinking like a victim.
so the incident in Sutherland Springs, you actually got into a car with somebody and pursued the guy, right?
I did.
And
After
he eventually I guess ended his own life. He was wounded. You wounded him, and then he eventually ended his own life. But cops showed up soon after you did, correct?
the police were 5 to 7 minutes estimated behind me. 5 to 7 minutes is an eternity.
And it is an eternity. How did they react to you? What position were you in when the police showed up, and how did they react to you?
We had chased him 11.6 miles down the road, according to the police. And when he veered off the road, off to his left side of the road, ran through a fence and about 50 yards out into a field, the driver of the truck stopped the truck, and told him to get down below the dash and stay out of gunfire. And I got out and I put the rifle over the hood of his truck again, and I waited again 5 to 7 minutes watching, wondering, looking for any movement in the vehicle. And I had not heard when he took his own life. But when the police finally arrived, they came over a PA system, and the officer said, "Driver, get out of the vehicle with your hands up." I looked off to the left-hand side, and I saw the police cruiser about 50 yards up the road from me. And he was standing behind his door, had a pistol in his right hand, and had the microphone in his left again. And he said it again. He said, "Driver, get out of the vehicle with your hands up." And if I can stress anything to your audience, when the police show up, whatever you do, comply, comply, comply. That officer wants to go home, and you don't know what he knows and what he doesn't know.
So were you afraid when he showed up? Were you afraid he was going to think you were the bad guy?
I was relieved when he showed up. I never wanted to see red and blue lights more in my life. So I laid the rifle on the hood of the truck, and I put my hands up as high as I could, palms out, and started walking to the back of the truck. And that officer made eye contact with me, and he keyed the mic again and said, "Not you."
So he must have had he understood the situation, whether he had some intelligence going in or he just quickly assessed the situation.
When we were going down the road chasing the shooter, the driver, Johnny Langendorf, and I had never met him before in my life, he was on the phone to dispatch. He called in 911. In Wilson County, a 911 call goes straight to dispatch. So we were given dispatch a moment by moment whenever we would cross a road where we were. And but I didn't know that officer knew what was going on, and I wasn't going to take any chances. So
let's talk about what happened after. I've heard your story before. I've read it. I've heard you tell it. It's an amazing story, and I can't believe you were able to do what you did. In all honesty, it's amazing, and we just touched on it. So I encourage everybody listening, if you want more details, Stevens, he tells his story in many places. I would just Google search and find his story because the details are amazing. What I haven't heard a lot of is what happened the next day? What happened the next week, the next month? How have the last 3 years been? So let's start there. What the day after? What happened? What immediately following the incident? What happened in your life?
Well, that night when I went to bed, I was trying to stay low and out of it. I didn't care that anybody knew at all. And so the first police reports that day were that the police got in a shootout with the killer and killed the killer. Later on that night, the news report, just before I went to bed, which I didn't get any sleep, by the way, but before I went to bed, the 10 o'clock news said that a neighbor came and engaged the shooter. and no one knew the name of the neighbor. And I was thinking, man, I got out without anybody knowing who I was. How fortunate is that? And the next morning, when I got up out of bed and I went and I turned on the television, my face was on the national news.
Jeez.
55-year-old plumber, retired plumber Stephen Willeford is the one who engaged the shooter. And I'm looking at my face, and I don't even know where they got the picture.
So before we go any further, after you, that night, did you go back to the church? Did you must have driven by, to get back to your home. What was that like?
Well, I was held at the crash scene for 4 hours. And they hopped me from one police car to another police car to another one, and telling me the whole time that when after the Texas Rangers interviewed me, I could go home. And I did exactly what U.S. Law Shield or USCCA will tell you don't do, is don't give them a statement. And I got diarrhea of the mouth, and I gave every one of them a statement. And but I didn't have any legal problems.
Well, I think, Stephen, I think that's natural. I think you're probably sitting there thinking, I was the good guy. We're on the same side, and it sounds like the police officers and the district attorney and the Texas Rangers all quickly recognized that. But I think it's important for listeners to understand that you can't go in with that mentality. The police don't know if you're on the right side until all the cards are out on the table, and if you did do something even slightly wrong or that you shouldn't have, it's their job to bring that to people's attention. So I don't know. Is everything I said? Do you agree with that, or?
Well, here's the problem, because when a police officer is involved in a shooting, they won't interview him until 48 hours after the shooting, and I figured this out later. Yeah, and it's true. It's 100% true. And I shouldn't have been given a statement, because just after the fact and your adrenaline is running high and stuff, you don't have all the details worked out in your head until later. And if you give a statement and then remember it a little differently later, and it's been proven you remember it better after reflecting, they give 48 hours to police officers before they'll take a statement. And so you should demand the same thing that they give a police officer. So if your story is one way right after the shooting, and then you remember more facts later, it might look like as if you changed your story.
Interesting.
And that's why USCCA and US Law Shield and all of them say, lawyer up and shut up. I was very fortunate because my story was enough alike, and there were enough witnesses looking out the windows that knew exactly what had happened, and they had given their account, and it matched my account well enough. The police knew that I was the good guy, and the fact that the Wilson County Sheriff's Office, the Wilson County Sheriff himself, Joe Tackett, my mother and his older sister were best friends in high school. And so he knew my family well. And when I was walking, finally after 4 hours, I was released and was walking back to my car. And I heard a lady's voice behind me, Mr. Willeford, I need to talk to you for a second. And I turned around, a very pleasant looking lady, and she was in tears. And she said, I had friends in that church. I said, how bad is it? And she said, it's really bad. And that's what they kept saying, it's really bad. And she said, if I can do anything to help you, please take my card. I'm the Wilson County DA.
Wow.
Ooh, I grabbed that card real quick. I'm going to use this one. And that's when I realized that I probably wasn't going to jail. Now, in California, the state that you're in, I wouldn't bet on that.
Yeah, but they basically in California, our government looks at Californians as either a future felon or a source of tax revenue. That's it. That's all we are.
Well,
But I digress. Okay, so when you did finally go back to your home, you went by the church. I'm sure there were ambulances and cop cars.
all that
What
was
was it like?
ambulance was cleared by that time. The helicopters were gone. Like I say, I spent 4 hours before they released me to go home. So
I see.
all I saw was news reporters everywhere, uh, and the police blocking off streets and trying to keep people out of the church, and you know,
Where were you? Where were you emotionally? Was there a time when it all just kind of hit you?
oh yeah, oh yeah. As soon as the I walked in the house, my house, and by this time, like I say, it was 4 hours after the shooting. So family and friends from all over didn't know that I was involved in it, but did know that I lived in Sutherland Springs. So they came here right away, knowing Sutherland Springs was such a small town and knew that I lived here. So they came to my house looking to offer support and whatever. There must have been 20 family members and friends in my house when I got home. And
Wow.
I walked in the door and I just totally fell apart because at that point I thought that I had killed a man, and uh, even if I hadn't, I had been contributing to that. And I don't think God wires us to kill anybody, even if it's justified. And I believe that God justifies it and talks about that in the Bible in several places. And I totally believe that I will answer that and have no problem with it because I believe God called me to do it. But I don't think we're wired to kill a man. And so, yes, I kind of broke down and walked in the house and was hugging all my family and friends and sobbing. That was the toughest week in my life, realizing that 26 of my neighbors and friends died that day, and 20 more were in the hospital with gunshot wounds. Uh, Wrapping your mind around that is is crazy.
I'm sure it's horrifying.
It is. And it changed my whole sense of security and where I feel safe and where my family feels safe. And I still believe, even today, that Sutherland Springs is one of the safest places in the world, and where I want my grandchildren now to be raised at. Uh, there's a legacy here that is just part of my family and who we are.
So talk about that. It when you say it's changed your sense of your perception or your sense of being safe. What do you mean in a practical way? What does that look like?
Well, I no longer have all my guns locked away in a safe. I know that it can happen here because it did. And just because it happened once doesn't mean that it can't happen again. And I will always lived in a little bit of a state of readiness. But that morning I was so totally unready, unprepared. I was prepared in so many ways, but just didn't think that it could happen. And I encourage your audience to understand that it can happen. And it does happen. And it can happen in the most obscure places that you would think would never happen. Uh, so be ready, train, and hope and pray that it never does happen.
So how do you remember when did you when was the information given to you of just how severe it was? Was that night on the news reports or the following days? And when you heard how many people had been killed, where were you and what was how did that hit you?
I guess it was a couple of days later before they finally got a real tally and the names of people that had died. And it, they had a memorial down at the park, and the news media was such that I couldn't even get out of the house. I couldn't step out of my own house. In fact, the day after, when I saw my picture on national news, they said we're going to go live to a live report, and they were doing a video. They were doing a live report in my yard, in my front yard, and I looked
What
at
was
the.
that like? What was it? What was that feeling?
I was angry. I was angry that they were standing in my yard interviewing somebody about what had happened in my yard. My son-in-law ran over and grabbed the keys to his car and said, "Watch this," and he set the alarm off. And you could see his car honking and the lights going. He said, in my yard, just to let him know, hey, go away. Finally, the sheriff's department put up yellow caution tape and told everybody that if they stepped foot on my yard, they would be arrested and their footage confiscated. But I felt violated by the media.
When did it when did it occur to you how many people you saved?
I still don't know how many people I may have saved. I don't know, and I don't want to speculate. And when people ask me how many people I saved, I generally tell them not near enough. 26 people died, and not near enough.
So after this happened, after you're identified and you're all over the news, some organizations reached out to you. You went and spoke to some folks. What was that like? Because you were living a fairly private and quiet life, and then I met you a couple years ago when you were on a speaking tour. What was it like to suddenly be off all over the country and talking about this? I would guess this was the worst day of your life, and
Well, it
now you're talking about it every day. What does that do to you?
well, it doesn't go away, and it's not going to go away. And the only thing that I can say is it's therapeutic to talk about it. Some people won't talk about it, and they're the ones that are having the most trouble with it. And the fact that I can speak about it and I can make people more prepared is reassuring to me that maybe I can make a difference. I can make a difference in a church that may have decided that they need to train and stuff. I offer training courses to church and come in and evaluate your security team, your safety response team, as we call them here in Texas, because legally you can't call it a security team unless they're licensed and paid. But if you have a voluntary safety response team, and within the state of Texas and several other states, you can have a voluntary safety response team, and you can train them, and they can carry guns. We now have constitutional carry in the state of Texas, which
I heard that.
yeah, and I was down at the Capitol speaking at the State House and the Senate, on the Senate floor and the State House floor in the state of Texas, and helped push for these pro-gun bills and stuff. And it's really crazy that.
So you're a trained civilian, not military, not law enforcement. You were trained by by NRA curriculum. You did some training on your own in different competitive shooting, that sort of thing. You're a regular guy. No, you're not a former Green Beret or anything like that. You're a regular guy. You're a good person. You live a quiet life. You used an AR-15 pattern rifle to stop a horrible situation from getting even worse, which by every indicator it would have. So there's a lot of hot topics there, and in a lot of ways, it bumps heads with the narrative, the kind of the anti-gun narrative. They're very anti-AR-15 right now. Mass shootings are something that the anti-gun folks talk a lot about. It seems like they use these headline national mass shootings to at the forefront of every restrictive gun law that they try to push. And guns really should just be for military and cops, not civilians like you. But here, this is what I'm saying is there's a lot of things about this situation that fly in the face of people that want extreme and restrictive gun control.
I have an answer for that, and any reasonable person needs to think seriously about this. Because I went to an event with Sheriff Louderback, and he's the sheriff of Jackson County, Texas. And he was a presidential advisor for Donald Trump, everything border security. And Sheriff Louderback said that the drug cartel have a $500 billion budget. Let that soak in for just a minute. A $500 billion with a B dollar budget. Remember, our budget for our United States military is $700 billion itself. Okay, the drug cartels have $500 billion, and they're buying influence on this side of the border in our media and our politicians and stuff. And so let's play a game for a minute. If the left was to get its ultimate dream, and let's just pretend that it can happen for a minute, that you could ban all the guns and all the good people and all the criminals would all just alike run and turn them in. That's an impossibility, but let's play the game for a minute. And that works. Everybody turns their guns in. Now, no one here in the United States owns a gun. He said when they make a bust on the border, they get full automatic M16s. They don't get AR-15s from the drug cartels. They get full automatic M16s. They get rocket-propelled grenade launchers from the drug cartels. They're not getting them from civilians on this side of the border. They're getting it through the black market. So let's go one farther in the liberal dream that you could stop the black market. That's going to be impossible, but let's play the game. We can stop the black market, and you do stop the black market. Now the drug cartels can't get any guns, right? In a liberal, perfect world, the drug cartels can't get any guns. So they take $1 billion of a $500 billion budget, and they set up the finest, absolute finest gun manufacturing plant this world has ever seen. They hire the villagers around them to run them. They train them how to make these guns, and they start cranking them out for themselves because they have the money to do it, and they can. And now all the criminals have guns still, and you've taken them away from every good person in this nation. We are all victims at that point. Reasonably,
so do you
think that out.
Do you feel like this, from here on out, you've been very vocal about the Second Amendment rights that we all fight for, and I can't tell you how thankful I am for that, because it would have been very easy for you to lock your front door and say, hey, I'm just going to enjoy my life. I'm not going to say another word. But you're really sticking yourself out there. Is this a second calling? Is this a second part of this incident that God's calling you to?
Absolutely, I do believe it is. I believe it. So I've always had these views, but I was never given a voice before. I always thought these things and talked about these things with my friends and people around me. I've always tried my hardest to fight for Second Amendment rights and tried to encourage people to get out there and vote for your rights and stuff. But now I've been given a voice, and I've been asked to speak all around the nation for Second Amendment things. I've been asked to speak to churches about being ready I did defensive courses for over 20 years before the event happened, and been trying to teach people to be prepared and have the right mindset. And now I have a voice. I've been given a voice. And so when I
Well,
say
who
things,
have you taken any criticism? Has anybody has an email, a phone call, or someone face to face? Have you taken much criticism?
I've gotten hate mail. I had one lady that said, "Let me tell you what happened on November 5th, 2017. The NRA says the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun." She said what happened that day is a bad guy came in and killed 26 people, and another bad guy ran across the street and shot him.
Hmm.
And I told her I was really sorry she felt that way. And I said, I really, really hope that you are never confronted with a mass shooter. I said, but if you are, find someone like myself to stand behind, because I will risk my life to save yours. And she said, I would never risk my life to save yours. And I said, I never asked you to. But
Hmm.
I don't care your political views. I don't care your race, the color of your skin, or anything else. When it hits the fan, just don't get in my way. I'll do my best to protect you.
Hmm.
And that's the
How is
difference between the right and the left, is we don't ask your political views or anything else. We don't ask race or anything. We stand up for what's right.
so? How is have you had a lot of politicians reach out to you, or how has that been?
I have. I've had a lot of politicians, and if you go to my YouTube channel, I have a YouTube channel. It's Barefoot Defender. I just,
That's right, because you weren't wearing shoes that whole time, were you?
no, I wasn't wearing shoes, and everybody seems to remember that. And so I've taken the mantle of Barefoot Defender on, because what it denotes is the urgency to get into the fight. You don't have time. As the Israelites left Egypt, they didn't wait for the bread to rise, and now they have the feast of the unleavened bread. To let everybody know the urgency of leaving Egypt. Well, I'm the Barefoot Defender now, because it lets people know how urgent it is to get in the fight when it happens. You don't
Right.
have time to put your shoes on. You do. The only thing you have time to do is grab your gun.
So how has this? Are you back to a normal day, or has this permanently changed your life?
It has permanently changed my life. I am no longer a plumber. I was a plumber before. That was my trade. Now I've gone all the way into the Arctic Circle and spoken to Native Alaskans about Christ, and have been given that honor to be able to do that. And I talk to several places, and uh, like I say again, churches and things. And you can find me at stephenwilleford@gmail.com, and just got a different life totally now. Um, and it an event like that changes the course of your life. I was happy living an obscure life and not being known around, but that's changed. It can never go back.
So how do you hope that your new path changes others?
Well, I hope it makes them realize that you are your own first responder. You can't bet on police. Uh, Richard, no, Richard, Chris Bird. Chris Bird wrote a book, and the subtitle of the book was "When Seconds Count, Police Are Only Minutes Away." And that's a profound statement, because police are only minutes away. And when somebody starts shooting people, chances of you having a police officer on the scene are so minuscule. You have to start thinking like a survivor and figuring out improvised weapons if you don't have a gun, what you can do to have the mindset of a survivor and not the mindset of a victim. A victim goes and hides under a table and waits for the bad guy to kill them. The survivor is proactive.
What else would you like people to know about you or the situation, or is there anything else you want to make sure people understand or hear from you?
I'm the most blessed man that you will ever meet. I have the most beautiful family and grandbabies and stuff, and God has blessed me. And I guess that's what I need everybody to know. And one of my greatest blessings is I know God blessed me.
Excellent. Well, if you want to hear more about Stephen Willeford's story, just Google him. He's all over the place. Check out his YouTube channel, The Barefoot Defender. And Stephen, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being here with me today. And thank you for what you did, and thank you for telling your story.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching our Magnum show, where we dig into gun owners topics a little more in depth. You can watch us live every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, right here on our YouTube channel, or if you're in the San Diego area, you can listen to us on 1170 a.m. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform for free. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can help restore and protect the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.